Southern New Hampshire University, MBA 515, Business Environment, Innovations, and Entrepreneurship, Contract Manufacturing, PEST Analysis, the External Factors of Westbell Electronics. Westbell Electronics will complete a PEST analysis of the external factors that may affect their business in the area of politics, economics, social awareness, and technological competition. Political concerns that relate to Westbell include government tax policies, labor rates, and new regulations and standards. As the government improves, it forces companies to change and improve as well. So, there are political issues that could change the way Westbell conducts business. Economic concerns related to Westbell include interest rates, copper as a commodity, and fluctuations in currency values. As the economy changes, Westbell needs to adapt to higher interest rates and fluctuations in currency values because their competition will. Social factors that relate to Westbell include population growth, the desire for wireless society, and environmental resource concerns. The added population increases housing demands and simultaneously increases the demand for copper wiring. Technological factors in 2018 are around us, sometimes when we don't even notice them, and include innovation and automation, research and development, and mass amounts of data. Technology turns people into machines and 8-hour days into 24-hour days. Technology lowers costs and creates high volume, low margin competition. So it's a serious threat and opportunity for Westbell in contract manufacturing. PEST, political, government tax policies, labor rate, new regulations and standards. Economical, interest rates, copper as a commodity. Social, population growth, wireless society, environmental resource concerns. Technological, innovation and automation, research and development, data collection. A major political concern for Westbell in contract manufacturing is government tax policies because the world is getting smaller with global competition in mind. For instance, President Trump says that he wants to implement a new 35% tax when U.S. companies bring goods back into the USA after having them manufactured at lower labor rates in foreign countries. The validity of his comments aren't as important as the fact that something so drastic could happen, and when companies need plans in place to adapt to these changes. Westbell could see an increase in business and needs to be prepared for original equipment manufacturers to start adding a 35% tax while comparing pricing amongst contract manufacturers. The labor rate is a factor that will affect Westbell because it will create a larger expense for the same amount of labor. In order to maintain the profit margin, they will need to increase their prices similarly. Quote, employer costs for health benefits increased 2.7% for the 12-month period ending in September 2016. Among occupational groups, compensation costs increases for private industry workers for the 12-month period ending in 2016 September ranged from 1.8% for management, professional, and related occupations to 3.2% for service occupations. BLS.gov 2016, end quote. Even though all companies are affected by the same increase, there is still a big disruption in the industry. Possible solutions would be to train better employees and create more efficient processes that will create a lower cost per unit than the competition. All contractors have the cost of gas and the increased cost of gas, so getting to the destinations more efficiently will be something more imperative to improve. It's still a factor that affects Westbell in contract manufacturing because they need to use the labor rate in a formula that wins contracts whether the labor rate is low or high. New government regulations and standards trickle throughout the contract manufacturing industry from big to small in a tree-like format. First, we see General Electric, Ford, and Intel comply with the new standard and begin to request new information about products. Then we see similar original equipment manufacturers request the same data. Similarly, Most industries respond to new ideas, concepts, and products over a long period of time. Adapting quicker can give Westbell an edge in negotiations by offering new data before being asked to supply it. Once Westbell is told by General Electric to comply to a new standard, they offer the same service to all the small customers that don't necessarily require it, such as an ISO 9001 certificate, which can be an international standard of organization. Many more standards trickle throughout the industry, such as RoHS compliance, REACH compliance, UL and CSA compliance, MSHA, and OSHA compliances. They each require some added testing and template-style organization in order for products to comply. Westbell states that their products are all UL Underwriters Laboratory approved, which means it is manufactured to meet 600 volts, and UL tested it as a third party and stamped it as approved. Quote, ROHS, also known as lead-free, stands for Restriction of Hazardous Substances. ROHS, also known as Directive 2002/95/EC, originated in the European Union and restricts the use of 6 hazardous materials found in electrical and electronic products. End quote, RoHS Guide 2016. RoHS means the product is lead-free. REACH includes more hazardous metals. UL is USA test approval. CSA is Canadian test approval. MSHA is a safety standard for the mining industry, which supply large copper cables. And OSHA is another safety standard that affects most warehouse and equipment operations. Being approved before being asked by a customer could give Westbell a competitive advantage, which makes it a factor in the PEST analysis. Economical. Interest rates affect many industries, so it's a good example of an external factor that can disrupt the contract manufacturing industry. Perhaps interest rates will go down rapidly and allow cheap debt to catapult companies into the next level, only to increase interest rates and crush them later. Quote, cheaper borrowing costs. Lower interest rates make the cost of borrowing cheaper. It will encourage consumers and firms to take out loans to finance greater spending and investment. End quote. Pettinger, 2016. Westbell has a good ratio of assets to liabilities and strong enough earnings to pay off their debt in about 4 years. Increased interest rates could turn into a competitive advantage for Westbell, while the competition with high debt will have new expenses. Quote, increases the cost of borrowing. Interest payments on credit cards and loans are more expensive. Therefore, this discourages people from borrowing and saving. People who already have loans will have less disposable income because they spend more on interest payments. Therefore, other areas of consumption will fall. End quote, Pettinger, 2016. Interest rates will also change how the rest of the world operates, which leads to more risks and various unknown factors. Controlling debt is more important than trying to create a way to beat the cost and validity of interest rates. Copper is a commodity, just like gold and silver, which means it's traded daily and fluctuates by the minute. It's completely unpredictable and changes the way copper wire is purchased, used, manufactured, and distributed. While copper increases, companies end up holding inventory at low levels and make bigger margins. It can't be predicted like interest rates or labor rates, but strategic planning is necessary around the subject. For instance, inventory control, waste control, shipping costs, and quantity discounts don't change with the fluctuation of copper pricing as a metal. Westbell will see changes throughout the industry when prices rise and especially when prices fall. Falling copper prices will cause companies to hold high-cost inventory for too long and fall into the pit of losing money to get rid of, or wait until prices come back up to get rid of their inventory. Social. The housing market will grow along with the growth in the population, which means the demand for copper wiring will grow as well. About 15% of Westbell's products are sold to contractors, electricians, and installers that work on homes and buildings. The added population will also use more electronics, appliances, and other technology that OEMs manufacture, therefore increasing the demand for contract assembly. Quote, Asian countries have shown particularly impressive growth over the last few decades. The increase in per capita copper consumption in Asia ranged from a low of about 40% in India to a high of about 82% in Taiwan between 1985 and 1998. Changes in per capita copper consumption in developing countries in other parts of the world have been smaller, but still positive. End quote. Kessler, no date. The thought of a wireless society isn't too far down the road, but a scary thought for Westbell. More often than not, the term wireless is more about hiding wires than creating battery-operated electronics. So the hidden wire harnesses inside electronics shouldn't disappear anytime soon, but it's something for Westbell to keep an eye on. When wire harnesses are replaced, Westbell may need to think about assembling a new technology that replaced wire connectivity. However, it's a big factor to consider because the social cultural mindset is geared towards wireless. Environmental resource concerns are a factor for Westbell to consider because it's popular for companies to consider the environment as they manufacture and dispose of items that may cause harm to all of us. For instance, Alpha Wire is a great brand of wire products in the industry and created a new brand of Eco Wire, which is a registered trademark. Not only is it made in a natural environment without harmful materials, the insulation is also biodegradable. Quote, EcoWire derives its advantage from the unique insulation, a modified polyphenylene ether MPPE thermoplastic MPPE-based insulation is non-halogenated and contains no heavy metal pigments, allowing it to be manufactured to meet waste electrical and electronic equipment WEEE requirements. End quote. Alpha Wire, no date. Westbell doesn't manufacture this product, but they can promote it in their literature and on their company website, and it will work well with the environment. Technological. Innovation and automation are factors for Westbell to consider because companies cannot simply stand still in the world of technology or else they will be falling behind. Quote, in areas such as mobile telephony and consumer electronics markets, a steady rise in demand for process repeatability has fueled a trend towards increasingly more complex and miniaturized products to the point that industrial automation offers the only viable production strategy for many products. This trend also has potential to eliminate the competitive advantages associated with a low-cost manual workforce because manual assembly techniques will be unacceptable in producing future generations of miniaturized items. Manufacturers are now being forced to make high-stakes investments in automation technology or to forfeit the ability to produce and market the next generation of products. End quote. Dashenko, 2007. Other companies are innovating and automating equipment and processes which could severely hurt Westbell from a competitive standpoint. Westbell will need to reinvest their profits into new equipment and stay competitive, even if the equipment can't quite prove a return on investment in 5 years. They need to invest profits into smart people that can improve processes and procedures that will lower the overall labor rate and maximize the total potential of new equipment. Instead of researching new ways of competing in the same jobs and developing new products and processes, Westbell could wait for their competitors to complete that work and then copy it. However, Westbell didn't start as a Me Too operation and should not start operating that way now. They have always tried to offer something that their competition could not quite offer and would not offer on their own. Their website was one of the first in the industry to show up in the search engines, and they have always offered additional services and payment structures that weren't common with the competition. Recently, Westbell researched and developed a new website that would allow customers to buy services online, whereby adding 100 feet of wire to their cart, entering a cut length, and clicking a few more buttons to buy a finished product. Storing large amounts of data in a relational database management system allows companies to view their biggest customers, areas of the country with the most sales, best-selling products, variations in profit margins between products, and much more. This data can be transformed into information that managers can use to make investment decisions about the future of the company. Data can be collected from the website as well. Perhaps there were 1,000 views on product ABC and it was added to cart 990 times. However, the thank you page only got viewed 800 times. That information clearly shows that there was a problem with the checkout page. That data doesn't give answers, but it leads to solutions when analyzed accurately. Without collecting data, Westbell would not be aware of the severe disadvantage from its competitors in situations like that. Prioritized list. Technology is at the top of the priority list for Westbell because they have the most control over the factors that influence it. They can improve their database, they can research and develop, they can innovate and automate as long as they have the profits to invest in those areas. Specifically, they could invest in more equipment because they can still turn some manual labor to complete jobs that aren't automated yet. Social cultural is the next on the list because population growth will strongly affect Westbell, whether it goes up or down. Researching and understanding the level of population and demand for new homes is an important thing to consider. Environmental resources is a big concern that manufactures and distributes. However, Westbell will need to understand the concerns and buy from the appropriate manufacturers when they believe social factors change buying habits. Political factors are third on the list because Westbell cannot control new standards and governmental policies that get implemented, but they can and must follow them once certain customers request it. Westbell can't predict which standards or policies will be the most popular or adapted to quicker, so they must stay on top of each in order to be ready for compliance when necessary. Lastly, the economic factors have the least to do with Westbell's growth strategy, which include interest rates and copper fluctuations as a commodity. Both rise and fall on a monthly basis, both are very unpredictable, and both tend to affect the entire industry in a similar format. That doesn't mean that they should never pay attention to interest rates or the price of copper, but it would be with internal strategy and a business plan. Readiness to compete. Westbell is ready to compete in the market they have chosen, which is better service customers that have less equipment and automation than Westbell, and to distribute copper wire products to their customers that cannot buy direct. That's why technology is the biggest PEST factor that will attribute higher levels of competition in their competitive contract manufacturing industry. They aren't trying to compete with the billion-dollar company Annixter. In fact, sometimes they buy from Annixter when cost or time permits. Pricing can be better from big distributors when copper fluctuates up and down, and they have quick shipping processes in place that get Westbell the necessary products on time for their production schedule. As Westbell acquires more equipment, innovates, and updates technology, they will begin to compete on new levels. Westbell is ready to compete in the political sector as well because they continue to overview the standards and comply with them sooner than their competitors. For instance, there is an international standard of organization, ISO 9001, that was updated in 2008 and 2015. Those that were already compliant with ISO 9001-2008 had 3 years to review, update, and adhere to the 2015 standard, which incorporated more risk management into all of the areas of the business, but Westbell did it in the first year. Westbell has found that the ISO standard isn't just a certificate on the wall, It's a group of processes and procedures that are documented for customers to review. They can review Westbell's quality procedures, equipment calibration processes, or how they document errors and put corrective actions in place to prevent the same errors from happening in the future. In other words, they continuously improve the political sector by complying with everything asked of them because they feel it will be seen positively in the eyes of their customers. Westbell is ready to compete in the social and economic sectors as well because they understand and agree with the environmental concerns of the world. They are prepared for population growth and increased copper demands, and they keep a close eye on interest rates and their debt level. High debt with low interest rates could ruin a company when interest rates increase again, so Westbell likes to keep an eye on their debt, all liabilities, and a ratio of less than 50% of debt to assets. Westbell is making a point to advertise their ROHS and REACH compliance in wire insulation, no hazardous metals, and no lead, and promoting Alpha Wire's brand of EcoWire as a strong believer in the overall health of the nation and environment.